And there's just two kind of people on the planet. There are people who enjoy what happens to them, no matter what it is, and there are people who don't. There's not much in between. And you can tell, just some dating advice. You can tell the people who are enjoying their life from what we call the 10-foot pole, but let's just call it like a 1,000-foot pole. You can tell people who are enjoying their life, who are going to be interested in making a better life together. So in some sort of relay, whether it's a friend or a companion or a lover or whatever, you can tell that from a mile away, and you can tell the people who are going to be interested in making your life not so fun. Now, some of us ignore those signals, or what would be the other reasons we would get into it with somebody who is looking to destroy themselves and others? Well, because, we have this self-destructive kind of tendency if we're not kind of dealing with if we're not focused on the right things. There's if we're not being creative, we're being destructive. So there's a self-destructive type of tendency. So you'll get, someone who is self-destructive or destructive in general will look more attractive to you if you have those kind of, we'll call them beer goggles on. And that's why a person, but if you're a sober person, you're a clear-minded person, and actually you have to give men have a keen sense of this, actually. They know whether because the male psyche is resource-oriented, so the male psyche, now, of course, it's always a mix of if we're talking in a heteronormative sense, it's always a mix. The male kind of nervous system enjoys, we'll call it a wild Shakti type of energy. So if we're in a heteronormative, that's why it's that kind of old saying that men like crazy women. That there's a positive way to direct that kind of polarity, that attraction. There's a positive way to direct that because anything's workable. So, but the male psyche, because it's keenly it's keenly kind of directed towards resource management. It knows it's already done the mathematics and how much this person is going to take my time, energy, and money. Just so you know. Now, the female psyche is organized in a little bit of a different way. And because we think that we can change you. We're looking for projects. If there's more of a tendency towards kind of that thing, and then if you have some of these kind of self-destructive childhood type of angers and stuff that you haven't worked out yet, you'll be more attracted to a more kind of destructive type of person. But all of that's workable. All that's workable. And so most of the time we spend just running away from ourselves and lying to ourselves and being in these non-realities, which are very, very time-consuming and energy-consuming. So we don't actually know, what makes us tick. We have no idea. And these things are very important. As an adult human, we're not talking about chronology. We're talking about just a human that's interested in evolving. It doesn't matter how old you are. As someone who wants to kind of live an adult incarnation, be a grown up, which is not very few people on the planet. So you guys, give yourself some credit. You want to have a adult incarnation. You got to know what kind of makes you tick. What is the kind of inclination? Maybe because of whatever happened in the childhood, you have a particular inclination towards a certain type of drama or a certain type of a certain type of energy or that's what attracts you, and there's reasons for that, and we don't need to psychoanalyze those reasons. Something happened when you were very, very young. And it messed you up. And now everybody's paying for it. So, basically you have to kind of figure out what is the thing that gets me going. Because we become spiritual when we think that somehow our natural kind of emotional reactions and movement of energy should somehow just be neutralized. That's not what being spiritual is. It's a very big, toxic kind of thought form in the New Age. Being spiritual is knowing what moves your spirit and how can you amplify that and how can you be more generous with it and how can you use it as a gift instead of a pollutant with every situation you're in, every relationship, every environment, every interaction, every relay. How can you create more creativity? Or we could call it love, but we can stay away from that word. Very misused, misunderstood, etc. So what creates more of that and how can we participate in it? Because naturally the human being feels better when they're creative. And so this is fundamental, very deep Yogi Bhajan teaching, which is you take the destructive tendencies and you let them destroy themselves. Not you take the destructive tendencies and you become a better person. So that's not really happening anymore, but it is kind of underneath there. But Satnam, that's not the way it works. And it never works that way, and it never will work that way. That's why we have 95% failure of, couples counseling, 89% failure of rehabs, 70% failure of marriages. You can't work with the destructive tendency that way. You have to allow, but this is sophisticated yogic science. You have to be adult enough to understand. That's why I made the joke, which every time I say it, everybody kind of gets uptight. Like I like guys who hate women. Everybody, freezes. But you got to take the thing. I need a certain edge, else I'm not interested. And I know a lot of people in here agree with me. I was like, I don't want to I'm not looking for a friend. I don't have any friends, and I'm not going to start now. So true. But I don't have to, who has time for that stuff? But so, you got to understand what you're kind of looking for in the relay and what kind of gets the system moving. That's just, and some of that will change as you deconstruct your self-destructive tendencies or these subconscious patterns. Some of that will change. It softens. Things move. You broaden. You widen. You deepen. So many things change, and we all know this. We all are experiencing it. It's very beautiful. So many things heal and change. However, these kind of deep patterns of the nervous system and childhood kind of patterns, you can work with all of it very constructively and use it in an adult way to make your life better, the people you're in relationships' lives better, and every kind of environment you come into better. You can use it in that way. So you're not trying to necessarily change it. And that's where you can really kind of start to evolve quickly, because you're taking the energy of whatever the pattern is that's been destructive with your relationship with yourself, your relationship with other. You're taking that pattern and you're basically allowing it to cannibalize itself. It's kind of like what's happening in the Democratic Party right now. You take it and you allow it to cannibalize itself. It's also what's happening in the wellness industry. Major. Everybody just like, can I see one more turmeric latte with like a pastel fucking border? No. And I don't care what you had for breakfast, and I don't care what you think you're doing that's making, who cares? Everybody's just like barely making it. It's really, you know what I'm saying? So that whole, we talked about this deeply at teacher training. That whole kind of, that just is a cliche kind of, so that thing is cannibalizing itself. So the people in here and out there who are in branding and marketing, get your shit together, because this is not the way this is going to work, and it's rapidly changing. So we gotta, keep we need Aquarian genius to move this ball forward. But so you can use that tendency of the destruction to basically allow it to cannibalize itself. It's a sophisticated Aikido. It's some jiu-jitsu. Because that's what you're doing. You're using the gravity to, use the gravity. You're using the gravity to basically keep yourself, from falling, I guess would be the way that, I don't do jiu-jitsu, but that's, it's a pretty decent metaphor. Any martial arts, that's basically what you're doing in one way or another. But so you're taking the energy and you're transforming it. So I'd like to work a little bit with this today. So all of the places kind of that you're holding a little bit of a wound or a little bit of a scar tissue around a wound, around your relationships or your disappointments or your childhood or whatever your issues are, whatever those things are, we want to kind of go in there and start to open up some of that energy and allow for the things that have kind of been haunting you. Yogi Bhajan says, all of us have about 13 ghosts that haunt us. That's significant. And you can, and how do you get rid of these things? Well, you turn around and go, boo. Basically, that's called the lion's roar. The only way the thing can haunt you is if you're not looking it in the eye and being like, ooh. That's what I like to do with my parenting skills. What I like to do with children, if they start to cry, I just cry back at them, and they're like, odd. Or if they're screaming, you just scream back at them, and it gets them right out of the thing, because you're basically, you're not kind of going into the neurotic thing, but you're taking the energy and you're relaying with it. There's something really powerful that things happen, especially if the kid's using the emotional state to manipulate you. Which is happening all the time, because we know who's in charge. But so that's so you're doing that with yourself, your own kind of inner child ghosts. And that's what in Tibetan Buddhism they call the lion's roar. Instead of running away from it, instead of lying to yourself some more, instead of feeding the non-realities that have exhausted you. This is why you're so tired. And I thought it was fascinating what Hari Jivan said the other day, where he said, if you're one of those people who's like, I give so much, I'm just so exhausted by giving. And that's a common rhetoric. I hear it all the time, especially with women. It's like the most common complaint. His point was basically, if you have that complaint, you're not the giver in that relationship. So you have a problem on your hands about how the energy is flowing. It's sophisticated, not getting into it right this moment. But for those of you who've been around for a couple of days, it's a very sophisticated kind of thing. So these non-realities, these ways that we've positioned ourselves to our own inherent power, which is the Kundalini, and the way we've positioned ourselves to how we kind of go through our lives, our environments, and our relay, there's emotional positioning that we've held, and it's calcified, and that's why people have certain kind of looks on their face all the time. It's a fascial response to an emotional pattern. Interesting, right? That's why you start to look different when you start to unwind this stuff, because the face actually starts to unwind some of the fascial kind of calcification that's happened through. When you meet somebody who looks scared all the time, that's something happened when they were very, very young. And they basically, the trauma has them frozen in that fear. So their whole energetic and emotional patterning towards the world and their relationships is that level of kind of shock and fear. And then the people, this always freaks me out, the people who are like, oh, he's smiling? That's weird. Who holds the very extreme archetype of that? The movie just came out. Exactly. There's some real weird kind of psychological stuff in people who are always right? So, but that, those are extreme examples. But so we want to kind of go into this scar tissue around how you've reacted. It's not just the pattern itself, it's how you've reacted to the pattern that has created these loops. And then this mantra we're working with today is very deep to heal these kinds of wounds, and go in and kind of make a new energetic space so that you can have a different sort of relay. And then you'll attract different people. And you may still need the fight, every whatever. Some people need to fight. That's just how they're wired towards, I need to fight, else I don't feel like something's happening here. So maybe you'll still need the fight, but you can do it like Yogi Bhajan says, which is like, all right, 2:00 on Sunday. What are you doing? Can we put down a fight here? That's how he said to do it. You schedule the fight. And then he said, if there's a man involved in the fight, unless you want him to go into like white rage, which you don't want, he can only handle 9 minutes. So you schedule from 2:00 to 2:09 on Sunday, October 13th. It's a full moon, good day to fight. 9 minutes of a fight. And you kind of go at it for a second, and then, you've seen it happen in the natural world, in the animal world. That's very common. And then it's like, okay. That's a natural way to fight. So same thing, it definitely, I think you get this when you're constructing, like in a martial arts setting. It's not like the emotions don't go high, but then you get up and your teammates, you walk away. I mean, maybe it doesn't always happen like that, but that's what you want when you're kind of creating a setting where people can move that energy in a healthy way. That's what Yogi Bhajan said. You schedule the thing. Like, let's just, it feels like things are getting a little heated. Let's take this, a couple days. Let's schedule this. And then the other thing he gave for people who like to fight a lot are, and my friends, Manfred and Raphael, in Berlin and Mallorca, they like to, they get a lot of energy from relaying that way. And so I was teaching this teaching, which is you start in the fight, then you start to go, if it really starts to amplify and things look like they're not looking good, you just start to go pa 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 instead of words. You do pa 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 and see how long you can fight like that, which is not very long. It's you can't sustain the emotion, so it really moves because pa 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 pa. That lip movement changes the neurochemistry. That's why we start all things with, in terms of relationship, how do we start any kind of sexual moment, usually through kissing. I don't know what the kids do these days, but usually it's through lip contact because the neural kind of pattern starts to secrete a different biochemistry. So that he said that's another thing you can do if you feel like you're getting deep in, it started. I used to watch my dog do this, where it's it would start like a play, and then the dog would forget that you were playing, and then it would get more serious. That's, I think that's a lot of times sometimes that's what happens. It starts and then, we forget and we're in our kind of childhood pattern. But you can use that pa 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 pa. And so they came back the next day and they were like, it works. So it's been tested by some of the best fighters among us. And they told us this story that just tickled me, which was that they told me I can tell it publicly, which is Tig Prakash we were going to send Tig Prakash with them out to the desert because we were doing a photo shoot, and they were like, no, he can't ride with us. And we were like, why? He can come and help you guys, set everything up and everything. And they're like, we have to fight in German for a little bit, before we do the photo shoot, else the juices aren't running. And so they didn't want him to be in the car because they were gonna have to fight in German for a while. But I was very impressed by that, and they're totally fine. They've been together for 13 years. I mean, they have a great relationship. So, everything is usable if you're adult about it and you know what is kind of how to use the energy in a way that's constructive. And if it's destructive, you let it eat itself. And you let the thing kind of burn itself. And that's a lot of what we do in here is you're holding a posture long enough so the thing can start to burn in you. And that's why it's not fun, not comfortable. Okay? All right, and that's a sophisticated teaching. So even if you got like one little bit of it, it's, imagine a comic book where it's like you're pushing, the comets coming at you, and you're there to save the planet Earth, and or you're Superwoman or man, and you have to catch the speeding bullet, and with your bare hands move it to the other direction, so you save humanity. That's basically what you're doing. And what does that? The addiction meditation. That's basically what what the addiction meditation does is that. It allows the energy, the momentum of the pattern to basically start to vesica pisces, or eat the snake eats the tail. What is that called? Thank you. Yeah, it's a different. What is the word? Spell it for me. Or Ouroboros? Okay. It was just so lovely in your accent. I couldn't quite figure out. I was like, Ouroboros. I just wanted to make sure I was saying it right. Okay, bring the thumbs together. Inhale. Thanks so much for listening to another lecture on reality riffing. These are conversations and topics that I think are very important to discuss. If you enjoyed, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and share with your friends and your family. If you also want to continue to listen, bigger lectures and classes and other experiences are available on gurujagat.com.